The content you're about to hear may be graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised. This is True Crime XS.
I don't know how deep we are into these things. It's like number 20, depending on like how the order sort of shakes out. So this is like episode 20, maybe 21, I think, somewhere in there. With this one, we're going back to 2018, and I picked two like very different locations, but like interesting attacks. And I wanted to talk about both of them. And then I also wanted to talk about the fact that like the perception by the press was very, very different. Believe it or not, the first one's kind of short and simple as to what happened. The aftermath was more interesting than what happened. It's from March 23rd of 2018. There were these series of attacks that started happening in France. And by this point in time, like by the time we get here, they're all considered to fall into a category as Islamist terrorist attacks. I don't know if that applies to all of them, but that's how it's viewed. And between 2015 and 2018, France places over 20,000 people on a watch list of possible extremists in their country. And they have about 240 people that have been killed in these like sort of localized terrorist attacks. This is not really all that different. This is Redouane Lacdim. So that's REDOUANE LAKDIM. And if I mispronounced it, I don't care because he's the problem in this situation. He was born in Morocco back in April of 1992. He had come over to France in 2004 and became a naturalized citizen because his father had acquired French citizenship. By 2018, he was living in an estate in Carcassonne. He lived there with his parents and his sister, and that's always interesting to me because he's 25 years old, he's living at home, he's in a foreign country. There'd be a lot of things to do in the world, and like I cannot imagine being so wrapped up in something that this is the direction that you go. He was known to the police in Carcassonne, but really just as a petty criminal, and they called him a small-time drug dealer. When I looked at some of the translations on the court papers, I don't know if something's lost there for me. The amounts look a little larger than I would think small time. But in 2011, he got a suspended prison sentence for the possession of illegal weapons. And he had served about a month in prison. I think online it said 2016, but it looked like 2017 to me, for essentially like a flee and elude and for having drugs on his person. Now, he had been monitored by the French authorities as a potential extremist. There was a flag on him. It's an S flag, which it's the highest level of these flags in France. It allows someone to be surveilled but not arrested, meaning they're viewed as some kind of risk. And in his case, he was considered to be a serious threat to national security all the way back to 2013. So that's interesting to me because it takes a while to get this flag. They don't put it on him officially until 2014, but there was no specific indication that he was about to commit an attack. So that baffles me because that's 4 years before what we're about to talk about, that they knew this and put this flag on him. His girlfriend, she had converted to Islam, and she was also known to French security services. So these two people living in Carcassonne in this essentially like the projects, kind of like it's sort of Section 8 housing, they're known to France's NSA and there's nothing that France can do about it. You can pull up a map of this. There's a lot of videos from the day that this happened that are quite interesting. There's not a lot put out there.
I just want to point out really quick, when we say Islam, the reason terrorist attacks are like very commonly tied to the extreme Islamics is because they have a deeper belief than just the normal Islamics, right?
Right. Like, are you talking about in terms of the wiping out the infidel type thing?
The radicalized parts of people who follow Islam, they feel like anybody who doesn't believe what they believe should be killed.
The extremes. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's how we come to have these watch lists. This is not Meg and I being political or religious or anything like that. That's just how we get these watch lists.
It's sort of twofold because everybody that follows Islam is not a radical extremist, right? But a lot of times those are the groups, actually just about every time it's an Islamic terrorist attack, it is the radicalized sectors of it doing it. And so that's how they're able to follow them. But like you said, they can't do anything about it just because there's a chance it might happen.
Right. And it's interesting because people tiptoe around this, in this case, 4 years, basically. I don't know how he comes on their radar as being this high security risk. It looks like he's made statements and sort of come on the radar from the perspective of the way he arrives in France. But
most of the time it's from confidential informants.
Right. That's sort of where I was going to go. I wasn't going to say confidential informant. That's probably a better way to phrase it. I was going to say it's local community members who observe him doing something or saying something.
Because people who aren't part of, like, if they're part of the Islamic community, but they're not part of, like, the radical extremist, they want to stop the radical extremists just like everybody else, right? Because it gives their community a bad name, essentially. And, obviously, that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse, sort of, but not really, because, like, every single radical extremist Islamic terrorist attack is a huge crime, right? And it's important to make the distinction, right? And because otherwise, following Islam is not bad. It's a completely legit religious choice, right? I mean,
community.
And most of them are not radical extremists. And we need to make the distinction. And I always try. A lot of people don't understand all the nuances of that situation. But the group of people who are constantly doing terrorist attacks throughout the world, it's not the face of Islam, right? It's the very small minority.
Correct.
The problem is that they get the most attention because of the bad things that happen. But essentially, they believe that everybody else besides them, we're ruining the world, basically, and that we must all die.
Yeah, that's where it comes to be. Really what it is if you're trapped in extremism, which these people do get themselves trapped in it, and they think that they're actually getting a way out of something, but truthfully, that's the mental illness they have going on talking. And people will say, oh, no, they're not mentally ill, they're extreme. Well, the extremism itself is an aspect of, like, latching onto something, particularly at 25 years old, where you're unable to make the distinction between what you should and should not be doing. In this instance, with Lactum, this is March 23rd, 2018. He arms himself. He gets a handgun, which he's been convicted of having handguns before. That could be another way that he ends up on these lists. He takes a hunting knife. He drops his little sister off at school. And then he makes his way up to a local car park at an overlook in Carcassonne. And this area is known as being a place where gay men meet. Meetings are arranged here. He gets here around 10:15 in the morning. He's dropped his little sister off at school. He goes up here, and the way that the French police and the French press report this, they're saying this first attack is motivated by his homophobia. I'm not going to get into all the psychological nuances that come with a situation like that when you're extremist and you attack people who are not doing anything wrong, but you view it as wrong for whatever reason. Frequently, their own impulses can lead them to have like these very harsh feelings towards other people for no good reason, because like these other people are simply engaging in their own relationships. We don't have any control over other people's relationships, and that's another aspect of extremism that like is kind of recognized, but like not so much. But according to the French press and the French police, this first attack is motivated by homophobia. So Lactam, he shoots a man from Portugal named Renato Silva. So he's standing close to his car and he's smoking a cigarette when he is shot by Lactam. Then he turns around and shoots and kills Jean Mazares, who's a retired wine grower. He was coming over to see what was happening between Lactam and Renato. The perpetrator gets into Renato Silva's car and he drives away. He ends up opening fire on 4 police who were actually just out jogging and heading back to their barracks. One of those officers is pretty severely wounded. But again, unprovoked. He then drives 5 miles out of Carcassonne and he drives over to Trèves. And I don't say that correctly. I don't trill the R, but that's a French city. He arrives at what's known as a Super U. Are you familiar with a Super U?
Yeah, but we don't have them here, I don't think.
No. This is it's a specific like French grocery store. And there are multiple independent, essentially supermarkets or grocery stores or little box stores that are all under a big conglomerate together in France. He gets there about 10:40 in the morning. He walks in and he goes to like set his terror on fire, essentially, not like literal fire, but like he's going to ramp things up. He immediately kills an employee. This is a butcher named Christian. And then he kills a customer named Herve, who's a retired mason. But he walks up to them and he shoots both of these men at point blank range. So this is escalated into pure terror. I mean, it started out as terror, let's be honest, but like it is now escalating into like he has targets because he is in a store where people go to do other things and are not expecting him to be there. And that is the only reason he goes someplace like this. So chaos erupts in the store. Customers and staff are hiding. They flee the store. They get down on the ground. And Lactam, the perpetrator, throws a homemade hand grenade into the aisles, but it doesn't blow up. So he's stalking through the store with his gun. He takes a female employee who like is in this little closet behind the welcome desk, hiding from what's happening. He takes her hostage and he tells her to get on the phone with the local police station. And basically he starts talking to the dispatcher that picks up. He tells them that he is a member of the Islamic State and that he is there to take revenge on the French for their bombings in Syria and Iraq. And he demands the release of a man named Salah Abdeslam. He is a Belgian-born Islamic terrorist who is eventually going to be sentenced to life in prison. He is the only surviving member of this terrorist cell that carried out attacks in Paris on November 13th, 2015, where about 130 people were killed and over 500 people were injured that night. So he was the only remaining suspect in that. And this guy, Lactam, is demanding his release. So because he's on a list, he gets a much bigger response than your average, local Looney Tune hostage taker, like a person who just is having some kind of break or having some kind of revenge scheme or whatever. He gets quite a few people who come and start poking into what he's doing. So that would be, for the perspective of like the United States, imagine the local police and the sheriff show up and the FBI shows up. They're going to cordon off this area. They're going to bring teams with them, different types of teams that are the equivalent of like hostage rescue teams in the National Guard. And those people are going to help evacuate everyone from the supermarket because they don't know what this guy is carrying. They're hearing all these accounts of him throwing something that like seemed like it might be meant to explode. And he's definitely got a gun because he's shot and killed people and he's fired on officers already and he's carrying a knife. So all they know at this point is whoever this is in here who's called the police and said, here's my name, I'm a member of the Islamic State, means business. So by about 11:30 in the morning, they have a setup where they start talking to Lack, and they have a lieutenant colonel named Ahmad Beltram. He convinces Lactum to let the girl go and says, I will come with you. Now, they've assembled this hostage rescue team outside the supermarket, and they have political people start showing up. One of those political people is a politician who has been a lifelong politician named Gerard Collomb. He arrives on the scene, and with the negotiations that start, the police and the FBI, or it's the gendarmes, but I'm just saying it from the perspective so we understand it. They bring in the perpetrator's mom and a couple of his sisters, and they start trying to negotiate with him, and it's going to take them several hours. About 2:30 p.m., the negotiator gets a hold of Lactum, who is kind of communicating through Beltran at this point. And Beltran, when this conversation starts, for unknown reasons, he attempts to disarm Lactum, calling out, assault, assault, to the gentleman on the phone doing the negotiations for what's known as the GIGN. This is the elite HRT unit for like the French National Police. And he did not distinguish what was being said.
Really ironic you just explained how they were the elite force.
I know. That I'm saying that on purpose. I mean, they are meant to be the ones who would understand it, but I'm sure this is chaos still.
But so instead, he was saying like assault now because he had started the hand fight inside, right?
Right. So what I think they don't hear him or they like are indicating that they think he's indicating that he's being assaulted. They're not sure what happened. So they delay going in, like essentially breaching the supermarket for a few minutes. They are basically ringing the phone back and trying to get Beltran back on the phone. Then they hear shots inside of the supermarket and they bust it. They end up in this closet with Lactum, and they're basically having a gunfight in a very small space in the supermarket. Beltran has been stabbed in the neck, and Lactum has shot him. During this gunfight, one of the members of the team are shot, and Lactum is killed. Beltran is taken to the hospital, and he is going to die of his injuries in the next 24 hours. So this hostage-taking and assault, if we include the perpetrator here, there are 5 deaths, and there are 15 injuries. This is sort of a ridiculous type of hostage taking.
I just want to point out, like, none of his demands were met.
Yeah, they were never going to be met. He was on a list. Nobody took him seriously. Like, honestly, 99.99999% of hostage takers doing this are never going to be taken seriously. It is very rare that someone who matters is going to be taking hostages in this manner instead of being diplomatic.
You're absolutely right.
So, this does get national attention. They make Lactum look like an absolute fool. Like, because, I mean, he's dead now, and, like, he is an idiot. So not only, like, is he an idiot, he ends up getting about 10 people in his family and his friends group arrested. 7 of them get indicted for having supported, essentially, terrorism. And They go through various stages of trials. It takes them until 2023. In January of 2023, 7 people go to Paris and they go to basically federal court. 5 of them are accused of being part of this conspiracy. 1 of them is charged with a weapons offense. And the 7th is just accused of it's not a Good Samaritan violation, but essentially, like, they had a chance to stop some of this and they did not. So they detained 2 of them at this point. 5 of them are out on bail. The trial is expected to last about 5 weeks. And this is being held at like this massive courtroom where France actually built it so that they could deal with the Paris attacks trial, which was held a year earlier. The verdicts are announced on the 23rd of February of 2024, so a year and a month later. They find Lactem's girlfriend guilty of criminal terrorist conspiracy, and they give her 5 years in prison. The other 6 defendants are found guilty of different crimes, and they're all sentenced to between 12 months and 4 years in prison. So the only thing that Lactem achieved in all of this was to get his friends and family put in prison. So, this is one of those things where, first of all, this guy just kind of made himself an Islamic State member. I don't believe
a lot of the terrorists who conduct these attacks do that.
Yeah.
It's not like they have Islamic State meetings once a week.
Right. And it's not like some
just whoever you can find. And a lot of times they're single and they're suicidal. I mean, single as in like it's one person operating and it's suicidal, right? Because according to the extreme radical beliefs, they will be rewarded for that sacrifice in the next life.
Yeah, and they won't be at all. Like when the aliens arrive with the mushrooms and put you on the ship after you die and you go off into space or whatever, like you're not, like whatever's happening there, you are not rewarded with virgins. You are not rewarded with anything that seems like what you've deluded yourself into thinking you're going to be rewarded with. You're just an idiot who committed a really violent crime and wrecked a lot of families, and you will be remembered as an absolute moron. Because that's the only thing I know about him is that this guy Lactem is an
right. And obviously, the fact that you have a problem with anyone who doesn't believe in what you believe in, and they're doing something so bad that you're going to kill them, it's a circular argument, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And most people who have, common sense and can like sort of think logically, they would say, oh, well, if I kill them, that makes me even worse than them. Even though it's completely subjective to begin with. It's just a weird thing that it's hard for us to wrap our minds around it. It's really fueled by hate, and it's unnecessary, right? That's how I view it. Yeah. Any sort of people who operate under the guise that they're doing, it's God's will to take everybody out that doesn't believe in radical Islamic beliefs. That's ridiculous. It's the only religion that does that.
I mean, that whole thing to me, and I have no problem with Islam. I have no problem with like anything related to a religious belief or a community belief, or definitely nothing to do with like people's cultural or heritage. I just have a problem where any part of someone believes they can be violent. Like I denounce it if you're in the United States and it has nothing to do with religion, it's militarily, or if it's police action, like anytime you move forward with hate, whether you're an individual or part of an organization, is absolutely, it should be denounced by the entire world.
Right, and they're never going to actually achieve the goal, right? The goal is to rid the earth of everybody, but that doesn't believe just like they do, right? And that's not going to happen because unless you've been brainwashed, you're never going to believe that.
Right. So that all took place, like the incident itself took place in May of 2018. I wanted to add it to like another story that like takes place in 2018, completely different place, that like I find so fascinating for a number of reasons. This is a story from July 21st, 2018. It actually starts the night of July 20th. And it starts with this guy named Gene Evan Atkins. He has lived with his grandmother since he was 7 years old. It's now 21 years since he moved in with her. He's 28. He has been known by family to live with grandma, but also to be like kind of constantly quarreling with grandma. According to a cousin, Gene gets fired from his job, and something had gone on where he had lost access to his cars. During different fights with grandma, he's slashed her tires, he's broken windows. Grandma has a serious problem with a lot of what Gene is doing, including the fact that like he keeps bringing this girlfriend to live with him and grandma that grandma does not care for. So the night of July 20th, one of Gene Atkins' cousins spot him sleeping in his grandmother's home on 32nd Street near Long Beach Avenue. And according to this cousin, she says that Gene was sleeping with a gun under his pillow. Now, the fight that had been ongoing that makes him sleep with his gun is that grandma was literally trying to kick the girlfriend out. So the following day, Gene Atkins shoots his grandmother in this house. He also shoots his girlfriend. This is around 1:30 in the afternoon on July 21st of 2018. So he essentially kidnaps his own girlfriend, drags her, bleeding from a gunshot wound, into his grandmother's car, and they drive away. Now, multiple people, including cousins, family members, friends, and neighbors, report this. And the LAPD is dispatched. So they put up a police helicopter, and they are able to follow him pretty quickly. They follow him into Hollywood, and multiple officers start chasing Gene Atkins. You could read this in court records. This case is still ongoing, believe it or not, even though it's 2025. But what the district attorney presents later is that Gene Atkins fired 3 shots during this high-speed chase. And he crashes his grandmother's car into a power pole over in Silver Lake. It just happens that this is in front of the Trader Joe's supermarket on Hyperion Avenue at about 3:30 in the afternoon. So for those of you who are still looking for deep dives over the holidays, this is a fun case to go read. It's absolutely tragic what he does, and it is terrible how it all unfolds. I will say this, there's a lot of video, and there are a ton of documents because this case spawned civil and criminal actions to the hilt. But once he crashes in front of that Trader Joe's, he gets out of the car and he fires 3 more shots at the police who are chasing him. And then he runs into the Trader Joe's. According to the LA, the police department, but also the LA County District Attorney, there are 2 officers who fire a total of 8 shots at Gene Atkins. Unfortunately, they hit and kill a store employee in the Trader Joe's named Melida Corrado, which is awful. According to the police memorandum, from the moment this starts to the moment it ends, there are between 40 and 50 people inside the grocery store. So the reason for the difference is because they can't tell exactly who got out to the front. Like there's about 10 people that seem to be almost out of the store. But Gene Atkins is going to hold hostages inside this store from about 3:30 till about 6:30 p.m. And police in tactical gear are standing outside the store using numerous ways to try and watch and negotiate with Gene Atkins. Now, for Gene Atkins' part, he is described as having a history of mental health problems. And that same cousin in an interview, I think it's in the LA Times, I know she pops up on NBC News. She says that he was a very quiet man who was despondent about his future. And she quoted him as saying what becomes the headline of Jean King and a Sidney Calic article in July of 2018. It says, "The next thing I do, I'm going to die doing it, or I'm going to jail." There are no reports that any officers during all of this are injured, by the way. But around 6:30 p.m., they finally break through and have enough of a conversation with him that they convince him to handcuff himself. And he wants to come out of the building with 4 of the hostages. So the 4 hostages come out with him, and they basically act as a human shield for him to ensure that he's not shot by the police. And at that point in time, he is taken into custody. He's charged finally in August of 2018 with 51 crimes. He gets murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, 4 counts of attempted murder of a police officer or government official, and several counts of false imprisonment of hostages. When they initially hold him in, they put him under $2 million bail. And this guy was never going to make that bail. But for some reason, when they bring him in for arraignment, they raise his bail to $23 million.
What are they even doing there? Like,
they're making a statement. We're tough on this kind of thing.
I just think it's dumb. Once you get to a certain point, you know he's not going to get out. So
right. And so that's where we sort of get into like the last parts of this case, which this is admittedly a shorter episode, but we can read quite a bit about this case as it unfolds in the news because it's high profile. It's not really high profile because of what he did. It's high profile because Trader Joe's is involved, and it's high profile because the police inadvertently kill a Trader Joe employee. So I pulled from KCAL News, which I know it got picked up by CBS. I pulled this one article from May 3rd of 2021. The headline is Los Angeles, man accused in fatal 2018 Trader Joe's shooting found competent to stand trial. And it's got this picture of Gene Atkins. He's 31 in the picture. He's in like the blue scrubs looking out from behind the pretrial area in LA County. Have you ever seen those courtroom areas they put him in?
Yeah.
So it's got like the metal bar in front of him. He just looks like the saddest man on the planet. It says, a judge Monday found a man charged in connection with a fatal shooting at a Silver Lake Trader Joe's in 2018 is competent to stand trial. Gene Atkins, 31, previously pleaded not guilty to murder in the killing of Melly Maricela Corrado. That's the thing that makes this interesting for me, and it's the reason I brought it up. I got to rant about, my Islamic terrorism in the first part of this episode, and now I get to rant a little bit about felony murder and a little bit about like how this is a domestic incident. So, according to prosecutors, Atkins set off a chain of events July 21st, 2018, that led to the death of Corrado, who was fatally shot by a police officer in front of the store in the 2700 block of Hyperion Avenue. Though he was not the person who fatally shot Corrado, Atkins was charged with her killing under the theory that he triggered the events that led to the 27-year-old assistant manager's death, including allegedly shooting his 76-year-old grandmother and his 17-year-old girlfriend in South Los Angeles, before he took his grandmother's vehicle and led police on a wild chase. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office in December said it would not be filing charges against the officers involved, stating that they were justified in using deadly force in an attempt to stop Atkins. Corrado's family, who in 2018 filed a wrongful death suit, have publicly asked District Attorney George Kaskin, who was sworn in after this finding was made, to reevaluate whether the officers acted lawfully. Atkins is also facing 50 other charges, and they lay out these charges again. But basically, they include attempted murder, murder of a peace officer, assault on a peace officer with a semi-automatic firearm, kidnapping, fleeing or pursuing peace officer's motor vehicle while driving recklessly, grand theft of an automobile, discharge of a firearm with gross negligence, shooting at an occupied motor vehicle, false imprisonment of a hostage, and a general charge of mayhem. So I wanted to start like part of the conversation here. What do you think about situations where like someone is shot in the course of all this and ultimately a completely different person is charged with murder, but the family is like both suing and asking for the officers to be charged?
I don't think that he should have been charged with her murder.
No, I agree with that. I agree that Atkins should not be charged. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think he should have been charged.
Well, what about the officers involved? Are they...
I don't know enough about it, about what happened there, but I would say probably.
So I pulled a couple of like random things here for this because, I don't know, it always makes me wonder. This is from the website taylorring.com, and I'm going to be upfront. These are lawyers. This is written by a guy named John Taylor, who's a lawyer. I wrote it February 8th of 2023. It just says, update : why won't the LAPD release the unedited tape of what happened to Melly Corrado? So this is like a blog post on a lawyer's site. I'm being upfront with that. But like it's stuff you can look up because he's going to cite things and I'm going to read a little bit of it. I'm also going to read the citations. It says it's been more than 4 years, and then he capitalizes 4 years, since Melly Corrado lost her life, and the LAPD still refuses to release the tape. After the 2018 police shootout where Corrado was caught in the crossfire, her family still awaits justice. Although the information that could give Melly's family some closure is available in an internal LAPD report, the city refuses to release it to the family until after the civil trial is over, which is still potentially months away. As John Taylor, who represents Melly's family in a civil suit, told ABC 7 News, it, quote, makes no sense. The video has them roll right up on Gene Atkins' vehicle and get out of the car and start shooting with no regard for what's in the background. There are people on the sidewalk. There are people coming out of the Trader Joe's. There are people inside the store. These documents, what would they jeopardize in the prosecution of Gene Atkins? He's in possession of all those documents. More than years later, Melly's loved ones are still asking questions and looking for answers and asking to see the full uncut video of what really happened the day of her death. Per ABC 7, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office said the officers involved in the shooting were, quote, justified in using deadly force, end quote, in their pursuit of Atkins. But that's not where the problem lies. The problem is that Melly Corrado died as a result of that, quote, justified force. But we can't get to the truth because the LAPD won't give us the unedited video. Even now, Atkins is the one facing charges for her death, despite the proof that it was an LAPD bullet that killed her. He recaps the event, so I'm going to do his recap here. In July 2018, a man named Gene Atkins led LAPD officers on a 14-minute-long car chase, and after crashing his car, he held shoppers and employees in a Silver Lake Trader Joe hostage for hours. In the middle of these events, Atkins got into a shootout with the LAPD. One of the bullets fired by an officer hit Melita Corrado. Her family and friends and family called her Melly, and she was the store manager. By the time the hostage situation ended and Atkins was arrested, Melly Corrado was dead. We know some of how these events came to be, not from witness statements, not from social media posts, but because of footage recorded by dash cams in the officers' cars and their body cams. The proof, as they say, is on the tape. Why won't the LAPD release all of their footage? Why won't they give Melly Corrado's family, as well as everyone else, the raw videos captured by the cameras, by the helicopters above, and by the store's security cameras? Instead, the LAPD has released 2 slick, highly produced videos, complete with slow motion views and voice narration, neither of which shows Melly being shot by a police officer. To add further insult, the LAPD has refused to release Melly's autopsy and have refused to answer why the LAPD and the LA District Attorney's Office ordered a toxicology report on her body. Ron Rosengarten, who is representing the family, along with John Taylor, told KTLA-5, "We have not heard a reasonable explanation for why toxicology tests were ordered for her." The LAPD have claimed that they have released the 2 videos so far in the interest of transparency, but if that were true, why do the videos look more like professionally produced films than in-the-moment videos? Rather than act in a spirit of transparency, Mr. Taylor said at the press conference, the police have turned it into a public relations effort to shine the most favorable light on the actions of the officers that were involved in the shooting. They want to control the narrative. As Mr. Taylor explained, the officers in the pursuit car had no tactical plan, got out of the vehicle, already having made up their minds to fire their weapons without assessing the background that confronted them. They shot towards the direction of Trader Joe's. There were at least 4 or 5 visible people in front of the store, and on the side of the store where the shots were fired, plus people in cars around the front of the store. Why did LAPD fire in the direction of civilians? And why won't they release the raw footage currently in their possession? The family of Melly Corrado has issued a plea to have the footage released, and even years later, that evidence has not been forthcoming. Melly Corrado was a very special person who loved her family and friends, said Melly's father at a press conference. We are devastated by her loss. We have many questions about how Melly died, but we don't have any answers. We are committed to getting those answers for Mr. Corrado, for Melly's family, and for the people of Los Angeles. We have not forgotten about Melly and her family. We will never stop fighting for her. At Taylor and Ring, we fight for what is right, and what the LAPD is doing, withholding the raw footage, is not right. We have taken on the LAPD before, and we promise you, we won't back down. Okay, can we talk about that for a second? They produced these videos, right? And they released...
That's a mistake.
Yeah, that's a huge error. And that's not controlling the narrative. Again, same thing with the Islamic terrorist. You're making yourself look like a moron as an agency.
Absolutely. And it looks just really awful.
Yeah, it is the worst case scenario to not release that footage. And I promise you, the optics of not releasing it are worse than anything that could possibly be seen on that video.
You're 100% right. And I don't get why they don't see that.
I don't know either. But that was the thing that, like, that's how this particular story ends up on our list.
Well, it's pretty safe to say that an innocent bystander got shot. So I'm going to go with it probably wasn't justifiable actions.
It definitely...
Because there's certain things that you have to take into consideration when it would be considered justifiable, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that an innocent bystander was killed sort of blows that right out the window.
Yeah, I mean, when you sit down and you look at how different groups, when it comes to police, and I say groups because sometimes it's the lawyers for a municipality, sometimes it's like the district attorney, sometimes it's a state agency. Realistically, and like, I would say this to their face, the LAPD and the district attorney's office investigating this is a mistake. And everybody on the planet knows it. Like, that's the instance that you bring in the state police or you bring in the attorney general's office and you have them investigate it. Because, like, you can't, like, most places have like an SBI of some sort or an OSBI, like, where it's like an agency that handles all of the state actions for investigating the lower level police agencies in that area. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office has been too big for its britches for a really long time. And the LAPD has sort of ridden in that shadow. They do end up paying out on this. And I don't know how much more you want to say about this, but it's like, this is all wrong, right?
It's 100% wrong. And the way you can kind of tell is, so he did hold the people in Trader Joe's hostage.
Correct.
Keep in mind he was pursued, right, by the police.
Right.
I'm not entirely certain that they knew he had shot his grandmother, did they? Or was it erratic driving?
I don't know what the initial report said. It looks like they knew gunshots had gone off for sure because of, they knew gunshots had gone off because that's in the 911 calls from at least one family member. And then he's firing as they're chasing him. So they're aware that guns are involved.
Okay, well, at least it's asserted he's fired, right?
Right, they have an inkling that someone is accusing him of that, of firing a gun. I don't know how accurate that is because we're still waiting on all that.
Right, but there was one death in this situation, and the police caused it.
Right, so I have one more article in here I wanted to read to you, because this is like more recent-ish. This is August 31st, 2024. So it's still a year and change old, but whatever. It's interesting. This comes out of James Bickerton, and he wrote the article, and then it ends up published in Newsweek. I think he's a U.S. News reporter elsewhere, but either way, it ends up in Newsweek. The title of it is Family of Trader Joe's Worker Mistakenly Killed, React to Settlement. It says the family of Melly Corrado, who was mistakenly shot dead by a police officer in Trader Joe's store in Silver Lake, Los Angeles in 2018, have spoken out after reaching a $9.5 million settlement with the city attorney's office on Friday. In a statement issued by their attorney, the Corrado family said, "Nothing will bring Melly back to us. We are forever heartbroken by her violent death caused by those meant to protect and serve the community. We will keep her memory alive always. We hope this settlement sends a loud message to LAPD and all law enforcement agencies across the country that officers must account for their surroundings when firing their guns." We get a little bit more information about what happened. It says Corrado, age 27, Trader Joe's assistant manager, was killed July 21st, 2018, after being hit by a bullet fired from Officer Sinlen C's gun. That's Sinlen is the first name, and then TSE is the last name. Officer C and Officer Sarah Winans had been pursuing Gene Evan Atkins, now age 34, who police alleged shot and wounded his grandmother and 17-year-old girlfriend before firing on law enforcement. Atkins ran into the Trader Joe's store following a police pursuit and received a gunshot wound to the left elbow. He is currently awaiting trial. So this is August 2024, still awaiting trial. Speaking to the Associated Press, Charlene Egland, E-G-L-A-N-D, who's Atkins' cousin, said the then 28-year-old had been arguing with his grandmother, who he lived with on and off for 2 or 3 weeks, about his girlfriend staying at her home before the shooting. According to ABC7, Los Angeles police pursued Atkins for 15 minutes, covering 9 miles, after he allegedly shot his grandmother before the suspect crashed his car into a pole, and they spell pole P-O-L-L, just saying, instead of P-O-L-E, near the Trader Joe's, and ran inside. Both officers insist that Atkins opened fire on them during the incident, but in a handwritten note, he denied having fired any shots before crashing his cars, but said the officer still shot at him. In a sworn statement, Officer C said, "I have no alternative but to fire my weapon at Gene Atkins in order to stop his deadly threat that he himself had created. I fired based upon actions and stopped when I realized he was moving into the Trader Joe's entrance to avoid striking individuals inside. Despite that fact, he was still considered a violent fleeing felon and continued to pose an imminent threat of serious or great bodily injury and or death while inside Trader Joe's." Winans, who fired 3 shots but didn't strike Corrado, said, "No longer could I avoid the unfortunate need to fire my weapon to stop Gene Atkins' deadly actions. I was also forced into the situation based upon the deadly actions that Gene Atkins had demonstrated he was capable of engaging in." In December 2020, a report released by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office concluded the 2 officers were justified in using deadly force in an attempt to stop Atkins. So there's a big going to talk about something else that's not related.
I don't know why, but I really honestly believe that he wasn't firing. I don't know why.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where I don't know if it matters or not. Like, they're going to pile on him because they have a prosecution to protect.
Right, but that's why he's still awaiting trial, right? I mean, they're not going to ever be able to prove this.
It's a mess, and like I'm sure they will figure out something that they can convict him of eventually.
Well, I guarantee you, if it was justifiable, okay, on video, body cams, car cams, whatever, we would have seen it.
So you think if it's justifiable, they release it and that's it?
Why wouldn't you?
No, it's a great question. I mean, I don't
think there's ever been a set of body cam or whatever that's been held back that didn't have something to hide.
Yeah. So the world has gotten into this content creation mode where the police do, even here, like, and I live in Podunk nowhere, even here, they release these really slick videos of what happened. And it's like, so typically it's a police specialist or spokesperson who may or may not be an officer. That was a type of position that I interviewed for once upon a time, where you're basically representing a department or agency or office. And it's that person talking in front of a flag. Usually it's an American flag and a flag from the local district or the state.
Yeah, it's PR.
Yeah, and it's a spin machine move. And in between, they give you little bits of the video, and they narrate it, and they put up cards to let you read along with their talking. But the truth is, we don't need that as a society. Like, that's not what we want to see. And I know it makes them feel all warm and fuzzy and like they're being transparent. It's the opposite of transparency. And particularly when you've got the videos that cut from like dash cam to in-car to body
That's all
cam.
people want to see.
Yeah, people just want the footage. Just release the 6 hours of footage. Do not cut it into a 30-minute movie.
Exactly, because once you do that, you are trying to sell your interpretation of it.
Right. And like, you know, I sit through this stuff all the time. Body cam, dash cam, in-car footage is the most ridiculous thing on the planet to edit. Like, you could make a cool movie out of all of that. I'm sure I've seen a couple that have come out that way. But the truth is, like, once you've had an incident like this, people know. People know you're cutting out, like, the fact that some of the officers are racist and some of the officers are rude and like some of the officers make serious mistakes. But when you've got somebody where it's the level of a shooting, that is the worst kind of editing that you could do, because you have an innocent person who literally woke up that day and went to her job at a grocery store.
And she was killed by a cop.
Shot by a police officer.
And they can say that he was on this deadly rampage all they want, but he didn't kill anybody.
Correct.
So how deadly was it? I mean, it's almost like, if we're going to get down to semantics here, it's like the cop was on a deadly rampage.
A little bit, yeah. And like, that's one of the things, like, I don't understand. Like, where do you get to the point that, like, you disarm the police? Because they always rant about disarming people. But, like, is that who we should be disarming? Or, like, is it, like, you know?
Yeah, that's a huge, like, whole different story. But, like, it's really hard because, you know, they're saying all this in retrospect, right? I do realize that more than likely the officers were scared, right?
Yeah.
And I do realize that they probably thought that they needed to stop him.
Right.
But they didn't stop him.
Yeah, I always get curious who fired first and whose gun accidentally went off, because it happens all the time.
And they say that she got killed in the crossfire. Was there really crossfire happening?
No.
I think a lot of times, especially if he's holding a gun, people don't know who shot the gun.
Oh, yeah. I think probably this guy ran away and that gun was still in the car, and they just assumed he had it, and that's how he ends up taking hostage.
Well, right. And I'm just saying, this entire thing, if the police hadn't shot, I don't know that he would have gone in and shot anybody in the grocery store, because he didn't shoot anybody in the grocery store.
That's what I was just scrolling back through while we're talking. I was going through my notes.
The only person who died was the person who was shot by the police.
And I think that if you're in there, you assume he has a gun because that person's laying out there dead.
They probably assumed he had shot her.
Right.
But he didn't. And that's my whole point. Like, if the police hadn't fired,
yeah,
she wouldn't have died. Okay. Now, they were anticipating, I believe they were anticipating what they thought, like, a really bad dude would do, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how bad of a dude this was. He was arguing with his grandmother over his girlfriend.
Right.
Unless he was arguing with someone in the grocery store over something personal, I don't know that he was going to shoot anybody. He was not going on a tirade.
Right.
I don't think. He did hold them hostage, though. But to be fair, depending on the circumstances, which, again, they didn't release footage they have to back up the statements that he was shooting at police, depending on what the circumstances actually were, in a way, he got chased into a grocery store, like being shot at by police.
Right.
So it goes both ways, right?
Yeah. I don't know how all of this would work out. Like, I look at it and I've been trying to figure out what could the reason be that we don't want to give this out.
Because he wasn't shooting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something like they see his gun on the sidewalk, like ahead of doing it, or like his gun is in the driver's seat, or you know what I mean?
I don't know why I have that feeling, but I really feel like he did. You know, he allegedly shot his grandmother. More than likely he did. And he grazed his girlfriend, right? He was mad.
Yeah.
But he was mad like a 5-year-old adult throwing a tantrum. That's what was happening. And he wasn't going to shoot people just to shoot them, right?
Right.
It was perceived that way. I believe he was black, was he not?
Oh, yeah. He's a young black guy. Yeah.
Okay. And that added to it. I can't remember. Did he have long hair, dreaded hair, maybe?
Yeah, he has dreads.
Okay. And so he's got several characteristics that can stereotypically sometimes be interpreted to lend towards someone who's going to do something bad, right?
Right.
And that's not always the case. It's not always the case they're going to do something bad, but you can make assumptions. I believe the police were scared, and I believe the police were shooting because they were scared. He was at least driving erratically, and he crashed.
Yeah.
And then fled on foot, right?
Yep.
Now, he didn't stop for police.
Right.
Now, there's some police jurisdictions, they don't even chase people if they're trying to pull somebody over.
Right.
They don't even chase them. They don't engage in the pursuit because of the danger it puts society in, like during the chase, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that tell you? Well, again, I don't know if they knew he had shot his grandmother. It's possible they did know. And in that case, why weren't they trying to tase him or, use some other means to take him down?
I think I saw gunshots like in the video that they put out. I don't know, like before the traffic accident at Trader Joe's. Mm-hmm. I think I saw gunshots like indicating that like he was firing from the car.
Maybe.
So like I think it's I could probably get there to like this is justified. And the thing about it is I can't get there to you don't have to release this footage.
They would absolutely release it because it would prove that it was justified.
Yeah.
And that's not what's happening, right?
Right. And so you can read up on this one. There's a lot of civil paperwork in this. There's a little bit of criminal paperwork. There's not a lot of resolution in terms of like the case against Gene Atkins.
The reason that it has gone on for so long is because they literally don't have a case.
Yeah.
They've overcharged him. And I mean, I don't know about like his grandmother and his girlfriend, but it's going to be really hard to prove the other.
Special consideration was given to True Crime Excess by LabrottieCreations.com. If you have a moment in your favorite app, please go on and give us a review or a 5-star rating. It helps us get noticed in the crowd. This is True Crime XS. True Crime Excess is brought to you by John and Meg. It's written, produced, edited, and posted by John and Meg. You can always support True Crime Excess through Patreon.com, or if you have a story you'd like them to cover, you can reach them at TrueCrimeAccess.com. Thank you for joining us.